This is Resonance 104.4 FM. I'm Nick Hennigan. How you doing? And this is Literary London, where we talk about things, well, literary and Londony. Except we're not today. Oh, no. Today we're going north of the border, to the borough, Edinburgh. And I'm very pleased, if you're watching this on the bohemianbritain.com or on YouTube, you will see I'm joined by the beautiful Nick Barley, who is, I think, is it director of the Edinburgh Book Festival?
I am indeed director. Yes. Yeah. Another Nick. Hello, Nick.
And it's the Nick and Nick show today, isn't it? So, as always, if you'd like to get in touch, probably the easiest way is to email radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. I set up a Twitter account. I can't remember the name of the handle. Not very good, is it? No. But certainly you can get me at Nick Hennigan, if you can spell Hennigan. Hennegan. And if there's anything that you'd like to talk about in the future, then please do let me know. I'm going to turn the email off now as well. I'm good at this, aren't I? And so Nick, thank you so much for spending some time to talk to us. I mean, Edinburgh, the festival, people talk about the Edinburgh Festival, but actually it's a group of festivals, isn't it, that seem to happen at the same time every August, usually.
Yeah, that's one of the really strange things about Edinburgh, because if you live in Edinburgh or if you work in the festivals, you say the festivals. But we know for sure that everybody outside Edinburgh knows about the Edinburgh Festival, and we have to live with that. But most people, when they talk about the Edinburgh Festival, think about the Fringe. But of course, the Fringe is one charity. Then there's the Jazz Festival, the Tattoo, the Art Festival, the International Festival of Visual Art and Performance Art, and there's the Book Festival. So there's many, many different festivals that add up to what we all know as the Edinburgh Festival.
And it's a fantastic, I mean, I've been up there, actually I've been going up there since 1992. I was first taken up with a play called Henry V Line of England. In fact, there was a poster behind before it was coincidentally by Jasper Cadditt's management when they saw a performance in Birmingham. And I kind of fell in love with the kind of democracy, I suppose. So it's 92, the sort of democracy of the festivals, because everything, I mean, book festivals are quite often considered to be slightly highfalutin. But right from the very start, I used to love going up to was it George Gardens you were in the early days? And the sort of whole access of it, it seems to be very, I mean, obviously welcoming is a it's a festival and things are going to happen, but I always got the impression that it was very much for everyone.
Yeah, we're absolutely passionate about festivals for everyone. And that goes for all the festivals, I should say, the Fringe as well. It's most definitely a democratic festival. And we have to try and make sure that it appeals to the people who live in the city, and it's quite easy for people to get quite grumpy about being in a city where there's festival stuff going on and there's late night activity and there's lots of litter and there's loads of traffic and loads of people on the pavements. So it has to be for the citizens, but it also has to be for visitors, tourists from abroad, people coming from London, people coming from the rest of the UK. And that's why it has to be so accessible, really. And so it's no use having highfalutin stuff. It has to be stuff which is available to everybody. But on the other hand, I'm really passionately a believer that people are smart and that people like to feel smart and they like to feel smarter when they go to cultural activities. So I think the best events are when people emerge thinking, yeah, I feel I understand the world a bit better now. Whether that's comedy or whether that's a serious debate on the future of the economy, if people feel smart, then they smile as well and they laugh, and that's the ideal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite jealous because you're in Edinburgh now, and it sort of becomes a bit of a habit, that I had two shows co-produced at the last physical Fringe. And actually because you have lanyards to get into various places and you don't bother taking them off normally if you're in Edinburgh. And I was actually looking at a menu outside a coffee shop on the Royal Mile. And I think it was the owner was having a fag at the side and he went, oh, you've got in. And I just said, oh, it looks nice. And we just got chatting and basically said, look, bring your lanyard in and tell your mates, we'll give you, I think it was 50% off anything you want. And I said, well, that's very kind. And he said, yeah, because, usually in August, we can make half a year's takings, just from, and we know a lot of you guys suffer a bit financially. You got that bit right, didn't you? But I kind of that was sort of nice as well for the Fringe. I mean, and how have you been not having what happened last year with the book festival? I know the Fringe was they did a bit of stuff online, but presumably that's what you did last year. And we've got to talk obviously about what's coming up this August.
Yeah. So I remember it was the 1st of April, and I think a lot of people thought it was an April Fool's joke that all of the festivals simultaneously announced the cancellation of the August festivals in 2020. But at the same time, we knew damn well that we weren't going to cancel completely, and we were all pivoting online. The book festival, I guess it's something about book festival and events, they're the easiest to put online. So we were very fortunate in the book festival. We had a very successful festival online, and we had the most astonishing international reach, much bigger than, more international than we'd ever had before. So after the festival in August 2020, I started getting messages from people saying, please don't stop doing that. Please carry on doing the online thing. Even if you have in real life things as well, please carry on doing it online. And especially I got messages from people in Edinburgh saying, for example, I've got some chronic lung disease and I've always struggled to sit in theatres with other people, but I watched you online and I loved it. So for accessibility reasons, please stay online as well. And so that's what we've done this year. We've created this hybrid festival, both online and in real life, in a new location, not in the old gardens where we used to have our festival, but in the Edinburgh College of Art building, but which has got a great big central square, which is like a big park that even Edinburgh citizens don't really know about. So it's a place, we're opening up a new park for a hybrid festival this year.
I mean, it is if for anyone that's not been to Edinburgh, the city itself, festival aside, is a beautiful place, isn't it? I mean, you've got the castle on Arthur's Mound, and it's a tourist destination all year round, Edinburgh, isn't it? I imagine. And this just adds to it.
Totally, yeah. And I used to live in London, and I love London, of course. But I must admit, living in this city, which has both got a mountain in the middle of the city, but it's also my house in Leith. It's 10 minutes walk away from the beach, and I walk on the beach every morning. That is a pretty fantastic combination. I'm very delighted. And of course, that makes it a tourist destination as well. Especially this year, there's a lot of people coming from the rest of the UK to stay in the city, and they're very welcome here. It's really fantastic.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you about you. So what's your background? You're the director of the book festival. And are you from London originally?
No, I'm actually a Yorkshireman. So I'm proud to be from Yorkshire, but I moved to London when I was, I don't know, in my early 20s and became a publisher. So I was a book and magazine publisher for many years in London. And then with my wife, when we had a young kid, we moved up to Edinburgh in 2003. And I was offered a job as director of the book festival a couple of years later. So I've been doing the book festival for quite a few years now. And it's a really fantastic job. I get to meet, it's not only literary folk, it's also anyone who's written a book. I mean, think about the range of people who've written a book. It's just an absolutely amazing door opener into the world of culture and the world of ideas. So, for example, this year, I haven't met him yet, but I'm looking forward to meeting Warren Ellis, who's one of the band members of the Bad Seeds, Nick Cave's Bad Seeds. And he's written a memoir, which is called Nina Simone's Gum. And just very briefly, the story is that when Nick Cave was curating Meltdown at the South Bank Centre in, I think must have been about 1997 or something, 98, 99. Nina Simone was playing, and she left the piano after the gig, and Warren Ellis walks on stage and he notices that she's taken a piece of chewing gum out and stuck it on the piano keyboard. So he lifted this gum off and he kept it, and it dried out, obviously, and it became a little kind of good luck object. He carried it around with him for 20 years in his pocket. So then later on, he decided it was so important to him that he had it cast in gold, and it's now become this kind of super important object for him, Nina Simone's chewed gum. And his memoir is really the story about how these little things in our lives matter to us. And he's going to come to Edinburgh to talk about that. But to me, that's an example of why the book festival is so nice, because it isn't just sort of literary, it isn't just novels, it's also the world around us and people telling stories of their lives and the people they've met. It's fabulous.
That is a great story, isn't it? And I look forward to seeing that. In fact, if you go to londonliterarypubcrawl.com and go to the podcast page, about 5 years ago, I think it was, I was wandering around the gardens with a microphone, talking to various people. So if you want to relive Edinburgh Book Festival's past, have a look at that. And we're going to post it again next week, I think, on bohemianbritain.com, which is this podcast, by the way, got voted, was it number 2 of the top 10 Bohemian podcasts to follow in the world by one of the aggregators, which made me laugh slightly, because how can you be a successful Bohemian? I tend to think of it as just being poor in your garret, turning out your works. But anyway, so this is Resonance 104.4 FM. I'm Nick Hennigan. It's Literary London, and we're in the company of Nick Barley, who is the director of the Edinburgh Book Festival. So it's interesting what you're saying about, we've spoken to one or two festival organisers over the last year, and everyone has said more or less the same thing, that we've had to learn. I mean, we're now doing this over Zoom because, as I've mentioned before, you obviously listen to this on Resonance FM, but you can also see it on bohemianbritain.com and on the Literary London YouTube page, London Literary Pub Crawl YouTube page. I lose track, I do that. But it's actually a similar sort of reaction from a lot of people have said that in a horrible way, it's been a good thing, because it now has opened up this extra level of communication. And I guess if you're a shareholder in Zoom, you're rubbing your hands. But all that aside, what's going to happen then this August 2021 in Edinburgh?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, honestly, it's been a really, really tricky time, especially because I think, is it the same in London? But here in Scotland, August the 9th is the supposed date when all restrictions are lifted. And our festival is supposed to open on the 14th. You know, so the risk of that being knocked back by a week, you know, it's been so difficult persuading people that we can actually have a festival. But we are going to have an actual, real life, in-person festival in the Edinburgh College of Art. But in order to make it hybrid, we've had to make some changes. So we've created some essentially TV studios. Each of them's got 6 cameras, 3 of them camera operators. 3 of them remote operated by our live editing team. So there'll be live edited broadcasts, I suppose a bit like sort of the, I don't know, Question Time or Wimbledon, you know, where they're kind of live editing the output. But we're also trying to make it so that the people who are in the audience, in the theatre, aren't obstructed by camera operators and by people wandering around in front of the stage. So trying to make it as good in real life as it is for people watching on screen has been a challenge. But we're also trying to make it possible for people to, ideally the authors or the musicians or whoever's on stage will be there in person. If they can't be, then they'll be coming in on screen as well. So the back of our stages is one enormous screen. It's like 10 meters wide by 4 meters high. And if people are coming on screen, they'll be sort of huge on stage, so that we can have these conversations via screen or in real life as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
I hope so. And I think the main thing I'm saying to both to my team and to authors is we're learning how to do this. We're going to make a lot of mistakes this year. This is the year to make the mistakes, because I hope people will forgive us a bit for the mistakes this year. But when we get to next year, when things are a little bit closer to real life again, we'll have learned how to do it. And we'll be, right at the forefront of this new technology. So that's the aim of the game. But the main thing is that I want to say is that as well as these 3 studios which have got audiences in them, we're also broadcasting to a huge screen in the gardens within the Edinburgh College of Art kind of campus. So it'll be as a mini park with a big screen. So if people don't want to go indoors, if they still feel a bit uncomfortable about breathing other people's air indoors, they can come to the site. They can sit together in the balmy Edinburgh sunshine, which of course it will be sunny, won't it?
Never rains in August in Edinburgh. No.
But even, we'll have stretch tents just in case. But they can watch and listen to the live event on a big screen outdoors as well. So I hope that we'll provide that sort of communal spirit of togetherness that festivals thrive on when people are sitting outdoors in the festival site. So there's different ways in which you can consume the festival material, if you like.
Will you have the sort of the sub? I mean, in the old garden days, you had various little theatres, and there were kind of stalls and the shop. Are elements of that going to exist?
Yeah. So there'll be 2 bookshops. There'll be a big cafe. There'll be various places for street food, and there'll be a bar. What the license is going to be is still subject to negotiations with the city council. We may have to have it table service, or we may have to have it within a certain defined area, but there will be the chance to have a drink on site. Not that that's the be all and end all, but it seems to me it's something about festivals and alcohol. There's a little bit of a link.
Yeah, I know. I've been with the assembly rooms for the last few years with the plays that I've been producing and writing.
Oh.
And yeah, one of the big things is the bar's open until about 4, I think, in the one
Yeah.
that they build it in a car park. I'm saying this to you, you probably know, but they actually, normally it's a car park and they turn it into this almost this nightclub, which is incredible. And it takes a long time to set up as well, doesn't it? I mean, generally in the normal days, and I'm guessing it's still the same, is there's a lot of preparation, not just there must be the preparation in terms of finding the right sort of program of events, but the actual physical thing is quite a big deal anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my book festival team is 28 people all year round, and that goes up to, I mean, not this year because we've got a slightly different situation this year, but in a normal year up to 2019, we would go up to 165 employees during the festival. So that would be front of house team, box office team, bookshop sales team, all that sort of stuff. It won't be quite that number this year, but it'll still be the best part of 100 people employed on 100 jobs created on our site. So, you know, it takes 30 people all year round to plan and program and get all the stuff together and take it all down again and mop up afterwards and, you know, apologize to everybody for all the mistakes we made and so on. You know, it's a big operation, and the Fringe is the same, and the other festivals are the same. So it's a lot of jobs, and it's important for Edinburgh's economy, frankly.
Yes, I mean, I did wonder at that because they must have lost a terrible amount last year. I mean, you know, so did lots of other people in different ways, I suppose. So, yeah. What's planned for this year then? What can we expect? What are you excited about for the Edinburgh Book Festival?
I mean, I suppose there are the literary names. Where do you start? There are about 250 different people, but the ones which have been attracting the most excitement on our website just when we announced our program last week are Booker Prize winner Douglas Stewart, who'll be in conversation with the First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, not about politics, but about literature, because of course, as you know, Nicola Sturgeon's a big reader, and that's a wonderful thing for us to have a politician who's such a big reader. It's quite a rare thing. Yes. We've also got Kazuo Ishiguro talking about Clara and the Sun. We've got Elif Shafak launching her new novel, which is called The Island of Missing Trees. It's actually a beautiful novel set in Cyprus. It's a touching, gorgeous love story, which I urge you to read if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. It's really beautiful. But then another one that just comes to mind that I'm excited about is the American novelist Rachel Kushner, who's written a book of essays, and she's going to be interviewed by another novelist, Colm Tóibín, about her essays. And basically it's the kind of essays about the state of America now, a slightly oblique and slightly bohemian look at America today. And that goes all the way through to debut novelists. So Kazuo Ishiguro's daughter, Naomi Ishiguro, is coming, and a whole bunch of Scottish writers. So one other little thing I'll say before I stop is we've got a project called Reading Scotland, which I'm very excited about. We've chosen 6 Scottish writers, and for each of them we've commissioned a short film. So we've put them together with a filmmaker, and it'll be a 5 to 8 minute film that they're making. Not an adaptation of the novel, but a kind of mood piece which shows the location, the atmosphere, the kind of ambiance of the novel. So that if you haven't read it and you're not sure if you're interested, you can watch this. Hopefully you can watch this 5 to 8 minute piece, and it will give you a sense of what it's going to be about. And that will be the opener of their hour-long discussion. And it's called Reading Scotland. And those 6 writers will then have a chance to travel around the world to literary festivals in other countries, Sydney and Toronto, with these films. And we hope it's going to be a way of showcasing the best of emerging Scottish writing as well.
That's a great idea, isn't it? And yeah, what a great idea. That's kind of cool. And most of the sessions are 60 minutes. Is that how it works?
Yeah, most of them are, apart from, there's one, for example, where we've commissioned the composer Gavin Bryars to write a new choral work using poems by a Scottish poet, Edwin Morgan, as the lyrics. That's going to take more than 60 minutes, but that's a special performance, it's a premiere performance of a 16-part choir, so, but most of them are, frankly, 60 minutes. Yeah.
And you get a lot of support, presumably, from the Scottish community generally.
Yeah, I mean, not just the Scottish community, the literary community worldwide. I mean, Edinburgh is one of those festivals that is a career changer for people who appear here. So I'm really proud of that fact that we make a difference to people's lives, and people definitely want to be involved. So we get thousands of books sent to us. We get publishers begging us to take their writers, and we can't take everybody, so we just try and make the best choices for the audience and for the writers.
Yeah, and that's presumably why you need a fairly large team.
Well, there's certainly a lot of reading. Yeah, I don't know if you can see behind me, but the books that have been sent to me this year to my house by publishers are kind of stacked around me in this office space I've got.
Yeah, so look, it's a perfect background for someone, a director of a book festival, isn't it? If you're watching this on where are we, on Zoom? No, we're recording on Zoom. We're on YouTube. That's right. Little Literary Pub Crawl and Maverick Theatre. And we're also, I can't remember these. Well, Bohemian Britain, that's the one, bohemianbritain.com. Yes, we're on there as well. And you can see it. Now, I mean, I've got to ask you, have you got a favourite behind you? Book is the one of you?
Well,
I've
got various different. Let me tell you that there's one here. This is a proof. This is Ian Rankin. I don't think you can see on the proof, but it's called The Dark Remains.
Yes.
And the story about this is that the original tartan noir writer, William McIlvanney, who was a Glasgow-based, he was a hard man of Glasgow from the 1970s and 80s. His books, the Laidlaw novels, were the original kind of flea-bitten detective, sort of struggling with alcohol abuse and addiction and so on. But he was a good guy, and his books went out of print in about 2005 or so. But thanks to the book festival, I invited him back in 2011. And a publisher was in the audience and brought his books back into print. Anyway, this guy, Willie, died sadly in 2015, but he left one unfinished manuscript in his top drawer. And so again, at the book festival a couple of years ago, the publisher approached Ian Rankin and said, look, we've got 20,000 words of a novel. Would you ever consider finishing it? And Ian Rankin said, God, I'm terrified at that task. William McIlvanney is like a god of Scottish tartan noir crime writing, but he agreed to do it in the end, and so we're launching this book, The Dark Remains, which is a sort of duet between William McIlvanney and Ian Rankin, who finished it off, and it's the final one in the Laidlaw books, and so I love the way that the events that we have are not just about what's in the book, but very often they're about the story of how a book came about and the ideas within it and the culture that they refer to and the people behind them and the world in which the novels operate. And that to me is what makes these book festival events so exciting.
Yeah, that sounds like a great thing. And what's the book called again?
It's called The Dark Remains.
The Dark Remains. And you saw it here first, folks. Yeah, because Rankin's a local lad as well, isn't he? He's still local, isn't he?
Yeah. No, he lives in Edinburgh. Yeah.
I see.
The other wonderful crime writer who lives locally is a woman called Val McDermid. And she's launching a book with us this year, which I'm really excited about as well. And that's called 1979. And it's the first of a series of books she's writing over the next 5 years. So there'll be 1979, 1989, 99, 2009, and 2019. And what they do is they chart 50 years of life in Scotland in the run up to the pandemic. So they start in 79 when Val herself was a young journalist working in Glasgow in the kind of smoke-filled rooms of the Glasgow news machines, very, very male-dominated and quite sexist. And she's got this young female detective who's trying to make a go of it against this backdrop. But I think that's going to be quite an important depiction of Scotland. Scotland in the last 50 years has transformed itself from a slightly sort of hard-worn and tartan-clad nation, which wasn't very proud of itself, into a nation which is incredibly confident and culturally active and fantastic place to be. And I think that journey that she's going to chart actually will be quite important, not just for crime novelists, but for Scotland as well, to understand itself.
Yes, that extra. 79, I think, was the first woman prime minister. I think I seem to remember. And so, yeah, gosh, that seems like a long time ago as well. It's fascinating talking to you, Nick. The two Nicks. Nick Barley, who is a director of the Edinburgh Book Festival, the International Book Festival, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so if anyone wants to, we could talk all day, actually, it'd be brilliant, but we haven't got time. And I know you haven't either. Do you write yourself, by the way? That's what I meant to say. Are you a writer yourself?
More of a publisher. I mean, I've edited scores of books, but I've only written one. So that was a long time ago. So yeah, not really a writer. But I like bringing other people's ideas into the world, and I think that's the job of festivals like mine is to encourage conversation. And I love doing that. I love helping writers get their ideas out there into the world, because often writers are quite solitary folk who spend a lot of time in front of their screens on their own, and I love getting them into the world, and they start talking, and they come off stage and they're really fired up, and they say, do you know what, I learned about the characters I've written about, and I'm so inspired by what that audience member told me that I want to write another book. So they get absolutely nourished by the conversations they have.
Yes, because it is a very solitary occupation by definition, isn't it, writing? As a no to my cost.
Really, are you a writer too?
Oh, I do. I've written, yes, by accident. Yes, really. I sort of fell into it, and I started adapting plays, and then I've written a few plays, and we've got a small book coming out that I think a local publisher has just said he's going to publish. Based on running a theatre company. Anyway, I won't bore you with that. It's a sort of diary thing that happened. It was '97 as well, and we got he said boring you with it. We got a very famous actor, and we got some money off the Arts Council, and his play won an award through the National Theatre, and it was me kind of being very scared of it all. So and it sold small amounts locally, so we're gonna scale it up a little bit. Maybe an idiot, really. Right. So that will happen, I think. But it's
we should talk about it.
Oh yeah, mate, that'd be good. I fancy myself on a big screen. No, I don't really. But yeah, it's got that sort of social. It's also the year Diana died as well. When I say it was fortunate, because it was diarised, it's sort of, there were stories of Princess Diana having broken her leg in a car accident, and the way the story developed, which made me think, which I think is why it's going to be published this year. But anyway, I mean, enough about me. If anyone wants to know any more about the book festival, where should we go to, Nick?
Well, tickets are available either online or in real life, if you can get your hands on one. I mean, in the theatres, the seats will be 1 metre apart, regardless of what the public health guidelines are. We're keeping people a bit apart because I think we acknowledge that people might be a bit nervous. So there'll be limited capacities indoors. So you can either get tickets online, and online it's pay what you can. So if you want to watch everything for free, no problem at all. But we'd like it if you could offer to pay us something. We'd like that. Or in real life, tickets are £14 or £12 concessions. So hopefully it's reasonably affordable for those people who can come along.
And what's your best website? Is it?
Our website is edbookfest.co.uk. Edbookfest. And people can, it's very easily findable, and I hope that the website should be easy enough. And tickets for in real life events go on sale on the 22nd of July. So there'll be a mad rush for the real life tickets. But if people can come up from London, we'd love to see them. We really, really want to welcome people from London and the rest of England as well.
Yeah, well, one of my highlights is a little wander through the festival bookshop, and I intend to do that again this year in August, come what may. Although we haven't got any shows up there this year. But Nick, it's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. Nick Barley, who is the director of the Edinburgh International Book Festival. It happens every August all over Edinburgh, and in this case in a new venue. And if you want to know more, check out the website. Thanks so much for your time, Nick. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
See this again. We'll be on the bohemianbritain.com, the London Literary Pub Crawl and Maverick Theatre YouTube accounts, and of course on Resonance 104.4 FM. I'm Nick Hennigan. This is Literary London. I'll see you next time.